Hey, finding great candidates to hire can be like trying to find a needle in a haystack. You get too many resumes and not enough candidates with the right skills that you're looking for the job. But not with ZipRecruiter. ZipRecruiter finds amazing candidates for you fast. And right now, you can try it for free at ziprecruiter.com/audio. ZipRecruiter's smart technology identifies top talent for your roles quickly. Immediately after you post your job, ZipRecruiter's powerful matching technology starts showing you qualified people for that gig. You can use ZipRecruiter's pre-written invite to apply message to personally reach out to your favorite candidates and encourage them to apply sooner. Ditch the other hiring sites and let ZipRecruiter find what you're looking for, the needle in the haystack. 4 out of 5 employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a qualified candidate within the very first day. Try it for free at this exclusive web address, ziprecruiter.com/audio. Again, that's ziprecruiter.com/audio. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire. All right, everybody, welcome to Bleav In Lions, brought to you by FanDuel, and you can see it on FanDuel Sports Network here in Detroit and on all the places you get your podcasts, including Apple, Spotify, and YouTube. And today we've got a very special guest joining the former Lions All-Pro Glover Quinn and myself, Trevor Thompson, and that is Dan Miller, voice of the Lions on the radio since 2005, also hosts the Lions Roundtable, and you can see him also on Fox 2 in Detroit, doing all the sports action. Been here for a very long time. Dan Miller, thank you very much for joining us here on the podcast today. And Lions preseason game number 3 gets underway in Detroit this year. But before we get to number 3 and beyond, let's look back at number 2. That game was suspended, Dan, because Morice Norris was injured on the field, had to be carted off. Played the same position Glover plays, former safety. Yeah. Tell us the latest, what you know about Morice Norris.
Yeah, first, guys, thanks for having me. Pleasure being on with you guys, 2 of my favorites here. It's that was just a very scary situation, and just seeing the way the players reacted immediately to his condition, seeing how quickly the medical personnel got out there, seeing how quickly the stretcher got out there, seeing how quickly the cart got out there, and the cart wasn't going to do it. They said, get the ambulance out here. Your fears go to the worst place at that point. Thankfully, over the weekend, the reports started getting better. Monday morning, Dan Campbell told us he's back in the building. He's going to meetings. He's in concussion protocol. But I think if you kind of think of all the things that went through your mind as you were watching that unfold, that's probably one of the best case scenarios. Not that a concussion isn't serious. It is. But it sounds like, 10 to 14 days. Hopefully he can clear protocol, whatever it takes to get him out of that. He's back with his teammates. He's smiling. He's happy and can get back to playing football at some point and living life and doing all the things he loves to do.
Glover, obviously you've been on the field. You've seen many guys get injured at certain times, but there's certainly moments in time where everybody stops, takes a pause. That was one of those moments. As a former player, what goes through your mind when you see one of your brethren go down like that?
Oh, it's tough, man. I mean, I've seen some guys go down, and unfortunately, I've been one of the guys that have gone down and been laid out on the field. I've never got stretchered off, but and 2 of them, I was playing with the Lions against New Orleans both times in the Superdome. But it's scary. It's a scary thing, and it's something that everybody is, takes very seriously from the trainers, because all that stuff could be life altering very quickly, very, very quickly. And so to see anybody go down in a serious form or fashion, it's just tough. And I think they did a good thing by, suspending the game, miss a preseason game. I don't think it's 4th quarter. I don't think nobody wanted to go back out there and play after that. And so that was just one of those unfortunate moments. I'm glad to hear that he's doing better. Praying for a lifelong recovery. Football is not the most important thing. So hopefully he can get back to just being himself and enjoying his life. And if he can play football again and come out of concussion protocol and have no issues, then that'll be a huge blessing.
Yeah, and we're all praying for that result in the end and for him to be healthy and happy and with his family because football, as you say, Glover, has its place, but it's not everything. But Dan, certainly you know firsthand injuries have seemed to have been the theme for the Lions, not just last season, but even through training camp and the preseason right now, one injury after another. Looking at preseason game number 3 and looking ahead, where do they stand as far as the health of this team goes, the depth of this team goes, and what's your take on that?
Yeah, I think the key thing is, look, getting 97 back is a lot for this football team. He changes everything for this team, having him out there on defense. And when Aiden wasn't there last year, look, they did a good job. They did the best job possible. They still won 15 games. They found a way to win the division and get into the playoffs. But, he is that significant game-wrecking difference maker on defense, and he looks absolutely fantastic in camp so far this year. I don't think he has missed a beat. I think he's back. I think he's ready to go. You've had some guys that are in and out a little bit. Terrion was not practicing for a while. Don't believe he practiced today. We'll see what the rest of the week holds. And they've had some guys that have been nicked, and we've seen some guys that have been injured. But I just think if you can avoid the concentration that you had last year, and the other thing, Aleem McNeil won't be back until probably November, so you're not going to have him for a while. But it was the sheer volume last year of injuries. You lost your 2 best defensive linemen in Hutch and Aleem. You lost your best corner in Carlton Davis at one point. You lose Amik in the first quarter of the playoff game against Washington. It just kept piling. You lost David Montgomery for a while at the end of the season. It was incredible the way it just kept coming at him. And at the end, there was 20 some odd players on injured reserve. And I'd just never seen anything like that. And the concentration in particular, Derek Barnes, another guy on defense that you lost. You lost Anzalone for a while. It was one week where they signed 4 guys, and those 4 guys were playing that week. They hadn't even been there for 3 days, 3 full days, and they were playing for the team. So it was unusual. Glover, I've talked to, I work with TJ and Lomas. I've talked to other guys about that. And, you talk about guys that maybe get hurt year to year, things that happen. Levi Onwuzurike is another guy who's out again this year, unfortunately. And he had taken such a big step last year. There's some luck involved, man. There's just some luck. And sometimes it's just bad luck. And I think people want to look for reasons for it sometimes. And sometimes there just are no reasons. The Hutch play was just a freak play where his leg got whipped around. And it's tough. It takes away from what you believe you can be as a team. It is part of the game, though. And like I said, sometimes it's just wrong place, wrong time, and bad luck.
No question. Takes a lot of luck, a lot of blessings. It's scary. Every play that you're out there, I tell people all the time, because people ask me all the time about, me leaving the game and all these things. And I was like, guys, I only wanted to play for 10 years. And I always said that if I could be fortunate enough and blessed enough to walk off the field after my last game in year 10, that it would be very difficult for me to walk back on, because I would feel fortunate to be able to say that I could walk off the field after 10 years of playing, and I would count my blessings and say, thank you, God, I've had enough. Let me move on with my health. And because every time you go out there, you risk something happen. And like you say, it doesn't have to be anything that you did. It could be a freak accident. Like you say, Hutch, yes, like those things just happen. And it's very scary, and so you just got to applaud these players, man, that go out there and put their bodies on the line each and every day. I know we look at it and we enjoy watching the game, but it is very, very, very risky for the guys involved, for sure.
Yeah, and I would say this too. Glover, you had a plan. You had a plan of what you wanted to do with your career. You had a plan of what you wanted to do with your money. You had a plan, and you executed that plan. And, man, I think sometimes when you're 22, 23 years old and you're getting big checks, it's hard to believe that it's going to end someday. It just feels like it's going to be there. But I've always loved your story and had such respect for the way you did it. And, man, I just wish other players would look at your story and say, you know what? I can live a really good life and still plan for the future. And I just think sometimes that doesn't happen. But you're to be applauded for what you did. You were very smart about everything, and you executed it. And I think that there's a lot of respect for the way you did things, both professionally on and off the field.
And like I say, one thing that I generally do, especially with younger players, is I always ask them, like, how long do you want to play? Because you the guys that have a goal, none of us are promised to make it to that goal. But the guys that have a number and say, hey, I want to play 8 years. Hey, I want to play 10 years. Hey, I want to play whatever. Those guys, you can typically tell by how they spend their money. You can tell by how they take care of their body. You can tell by how much they do that they're trying to do this and be gone. And then you get some of these guys that's like, man, I'm playing as long as I can play. Like as long as you could play, maybe 3 years.
Right.
You don't ever know.
Sure.
It may
Right.
we all hope and want it to be 15 years, but it may not be 15 years. And so if you're not taking care of your money, taking care of your body, putting everything into it, and really, 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 really trying to focus on being the best you can be for this short period of time, then next thing you know, you look up and you played 4 years and you blew through a lot and you this and you that, and now you're sitting there and it don't look the same. And so having a goal, at least having a number, not saying we're going to hit that number, but at least you got a goal. You got something that you're shooting for. And I remember watching an old school ESPN 30 whatever. I think it was John Randall was talking, and I think I remember him saying the goal in the NFL is to make as much money as you can, to win as many rings as you can, as quick as you can, and get out. And that was something that I was like, that's my goal. I want to make as much money as I can, try to win as many rings as I can, although I didn't win any, as quick as I can, and get out. And fortunate enough for me, I was able to do that. And now I'm 39, almost 40, and I feel great. I tell people all the time, I feel like I never even played the game.
It's a strange life though, because Trev, you and I can't relate to careers that could be over at 27, 29, and then you're looking for something else to do. And it's, outside of maybe, I don't know, boy bands, there's not many people that have careers that are that short, and then you're looking for something else to do. But if you're good and you're smart about it, you know what? Even GQ, if your career had ended after 6 or 7, you'd have probably been in pretty good shape because of the way you handled things. So, it's kind of a tangent here, but I always think it's interesting, and I always appreciate it when I hear that people do that because, man, it's a wonderful opportunity to be able to really set yourself up for life.
Glover's a man with a plan, and that carries through his entire life. Everybody, you're watching Bleav In Lions on FanDuel Sports Network, brought to you by FanDuel. And you talk about Aiden Hutchinson, guys. Obviously, this guy is a problem. And they've actually, in training camp, had the Hutch rules because he's blowing up all the offensive plays. In order for the offense to get their plays in, if he gets in the backfield, just keep playing the play through because he's going to blow up every single play going. I was looking at the odds, and he is plus 700 to be the defensive player of the year. The only guy ahead of him with better odds is Micah Parsons of the Cowboys at plus 600. He's not even in camp yet. But you look at what Aiden Hutchinson can do, defensive player of the year, the impact that he's going to have. What are your guys' thoughts on not just the odds of him being the defensive player of the year, but just the impact he's going to have each and every week on the defensive side of the ball if the Lions are going to be successful, given some of the instability on the offensive side of the ball and the O-line?
Yeah, I think the NFL made him mad. And I haven't talked to Aiden about this, but I'll guarantee you they made him mad when they put him number 55 on their list of 100 best players. That's too low. And I know part of that has to do with the injury last year, but Aiden is that dude is just driven, man. He is one of those guys that you just see it in everything he does. He is just driven to be great. And I think, yeah, Trev, your best players have to be your best players. And he's got to be a difference maker. Without Aleem in there, there's some questions about some of the other guys' ability and consistency to get to a quarterback. Davenport's looked great, but he's had availability issues throughout his career. So, look, Aiden's got to be Aiden. And the Aiden we saw last year was a defensive player of the year candidate and the leading candidate when he got hurt. And I think if he gets back to that, I think he's going to get beyond that. I just think he looks that good out there. He is blowing people up on a daily basis. But it's part of the recipe for this team because, they've been really good against the run. They've struggled against the pass. The numbers have been kind of big. if you can start forcing these quarterbacks to make some mistakes, that secondary now looks really strong. If you can give them just a little bit of help and force that quarterback to maybe get rid of it just a touch before he wants to.
Yeah, no question. I mean, having a guy like Aiden, just his presence alone, just makes everybody feels better on the defensive side of the ball. I mean, being able to control everything that goes on that side, from the run game, the pass game, the secondary feels better. When he's not out there, we all feel it. We all feel it. I mean, I remember playing with Sue, with Ziggy. Like, you feel when those guys are not out there, and you feel when they're out there, you know, all right, the run game is shut down. I don't have to worry about that. I'm ready to get some passes. Now Ziggy, get some pressure on him so I can get a pick. So that, like, those are the things that are going when those guys are not out there. Now it's like, oh, heck, boy, the quarterback got all day. I got to stay in coverage. It just plays with so many other things. And so to have him back out there, you know, in camp, for one, the players can get a feel that, okay, Aiden is back. Not only is he back, he looks even better. So we remember what he was last year, but he looks even better. Now, obviously, yeah, you got to go out and do it in the games, but just getting that feel in practice every day, because sometimes these guys don't practice, so you don't really know. It's like he's coming back, but I don't really know. But for him to be out there every day, for you to see him every day, to see how hard he's working, to see how good he looks, it gives you that confidence that Aiden's going to be the guy. And now as a defensive back, you're sitting back there, you know, licking your chops, hoping, come on now, come on, throw me a couple.
So when I was on the FanDuel website looking at these things, guys, if I'm looking at the defensive player of the year, I'm like, okay, so what about the offensive side of the ball? And without Frank Ragnow in there helping with that run blocking, what's the offense going to be like as far as the backs are concerned? But then I saw Jahmyr Gibbs plus 1,300 to be the offensive player of the year. Only three guys were ahead of him: Saquon Barkley, Jamar Chase, and Justin Jefferson. So he's in some pretty good company as far as those odds on being the offensive player of the year. Plus 1,300, Dan, I'm not sure what your thoughts on odds are as far as that goes, but his chances of being the offensive player of the year with a reconstructed O-line and maybe some new pieces in there, younger pieces, rookie Tate Ratledge getting an opportunity. What are your thoughts there from what you've seen so far?
Yeah, first of all, Jamir he's a freak. Yeah, I mean, we were talking about him last night. I think he's one of the best three running backs in the league. I mean, I just think he's a touchdown waiting to happen. He's a home run waiting to happen. He can run through you. He can run around you. He can run by you. He's just a terrifically gifted player. And I do think, guys, as we talk about this team, there are some questions that we won't be able to answer until we get to Green Bay and then we play Chicago and some of these things happen. The interior of that offensive line is a question. You lost one of the best players in the NFL with Frank Ragnow retiring. Zeitler was a really good player who left as a free agent. Now you're working in Mahogany, who has very limited experience. You're working in Ratledge, who's a rookie. And you're bringing back Graham, who wasn't his best last year, but we know he's capable of being a very good football player. So you got to kind of figure, okay, how are these guys going to work together? Because that offensive line has been the strength of this team now for several years. It's what this team has been built around. And that running game has given Jared Goff, freedom on play action and the ability to be as effective as he is in that part of the game. So, look, I think Jamir is going to have a terrific year. There's levels, though. How much that offensive line can come together is going to dictate kind of what level he'll get to. But he is so much fun to watch and a terrific player. And I think, yeah, he's certainly got the ability based on what we saw last year, because I think he can get even better in the passing game to be up there with your player of the year candidates. But I do think, and with a new offensive coordinator, John Morton, how does he get into the flow of the game? How does he set things up? How does he and Jared get on the same page? And I always talk about, plays you use in the first quarter that set up a play in the fourth quarter. How does he work with that? There's questions we have to answer, I think, about this Lions offense that can easily be answered and might easily go their way very well. But you need games, I think, to know it for sure.
Just wanted to get a thought there, Glover. I see the wheel spinning. But Jahmyr Gibbs, I mean, this guy's a problem too. If you were playing defense against him, I don't know what your thoughts would be week after week having to face a guy like that. But as far as offensive player of the year goes, he is obviously a candidate.
Yeah, he's tough. I mean, he's been one of my favorites ever since I saw him in Alabama. I watched him a game and I was like, oh, wow, this guy's nice. And then the Lions drafted him. I was like, oh, wow, he's really good. And to go out and have that season that he had last year is incredible. I always feel like that shows the sign of a mature player to be able to, come back and do it again. And it may not look exactly the same, but you can have the same impact. And so I'll be interested to see how the new coordinator use him, how they get him involved, how much do they try to use him, and how he takes his game to the next level when defenses are preparing to stop him. It's a little different when they're locking in to say, hey, if we can get Jahmyr stopped, we can slow this offense down a little bit. So it'll be interesting to see how he takes his game to the next level in that regard. I think it's very difficult to say that a running back could win MVP, in today's game, but I think he can have another stellar year. He's young, he's vibrant. You can see it in his legs. He's springy, and he's definitely one of those guys that, from a safety standpoint, you don't want to see him breaking free in the secondary because, like you said, he can run away from you, he can run through you, he can make you miss, he could do so many different things. And so, just seeing how they're going to be able to use him. But I think the thing that gets me with this Lions team, and I think it's getting a lot of the fans, at least from what I hear and see on social media, is yes, you got the O-line that could possibly be an issue. You got, players, but I think it's really the coordinators. I mean, losing two coordinators that had the stability that they had within the Lions for those years. Now you got two new coordinators. You got a brand new offensive coordinator. You got a brand new defensive coordinator. And not saying that those guys can't just step in and it be seamless. But I think for fans, it's kind of like, we don't know. And we're sitting here now saying, how are they going to use Jahmyr Gibbs? How are they going to do this? You know what I'm saying? How is Kelvin going to do this on the defensive side? Is he going to how's it going to be for Aiden? Like, what's going to really happen? And we really don't know. And me personally, that's why I would like to see some of the starters play more in the preseason, because I feel like the coordinators need to get a feel for these guys in real action and not just, week one against, Green Bay.
That's a really good point, Glover, to try to feel that out, to try to get that continuity, develop that kind of chemistry. And Dan, with 2 preseason games in the books, heading into number 3 at home this week, what have you seen so far, and what will you be looking for with 2 more to go, and especially this week?
Yeah, I mean, obviously we're not seeing the starters out there.
Right.
So that's a significant part of it. I think, the guys that have jumped, the 2 draft picks that played last week, I thought, I always tell Lomas and in the booth, watch these guys because they're in your house. They're playing on that line. So watch Ratledge. Tell me what you see. Watch Tyleek. Tell me what you see. And he really liked what he saw out of both those guys in their first game. So I think, they checked a lot of good boxes in that first game. I think obviously a lot of people are talking about Hendon. Look, he's got to be better. You got to have ball security. You can't turn it over in this league. And I think he needs, as coach says, some wins. He needs, hopefully in these joints against Miami, he gets some. Hopefully this week against Miami, he'll get some. And Kyle Allen, if he can keep ascending, he's got a chance to just be that backup quarterback. Nobody's got that job right now, so somebody's going to earn it. I love what I've seen out of Isaac Tesla. I mean, it just, I think when you see a team trade up like that in the 3rd round like they did and give up pretty significant capital, and then the general manager comes out and says, that was my favorite receiver in the draft, that's a lot. But he's looked the part, and he's looked the part since he walked in the door. He looked the part in the offseason. He looked the part from the beginning of training camp, and he's now pushing his way into number 1 reps that we're seeing with the offense. And I think there's a lot to like there, man. He's a big guy. He's got some speed. He's strong, knows how to use his body. He blocks. So they may have found the real deal there. Obviously, a lot has to be written in that story before we really know, but they may have found something. So I think those are some of the things that have kind of jumped out at me. Again, you're looking at guys that are trying to prove to this coaching staff that if something happens to a starter, they can be trusted to come in. And we saw last year how important that can be. So I think what you're looking at is, okay, if there's a break glass in case of emergency, these are some of the guys that you're going to have out there.
Glover, what are you going to be looking for this weekend leading up to September the 7th?
I mean, the same thing. And
Same thing, yeah.
I'm looking for depth, the guys that I feel like can come in and provide some kind of playmaking ability. Obviously, I'm a defensive guy, so I'm very interested in the secondary. Who's going to be the guys? Because obviously you have Kirby, who's been dealing with some things in camp, and you have Brian. But who's going to be after those guys? You know what I'm saying? Who's going to be in there when those guys, if something happens? You got the corners. Who are your guys going to be? You got a Mick, you got Terry Young, but Terry Young's been dealing with a little hamstring here, and I just like to know who's going to be the guys, and then who's going to be the guys that got to come in and contribute. And you want to see that consistently. So you want to see it in these joint practices, who's playing well, and then you want to see who can go out there and deliver, and under the bright lights. So I'm always looking for the defensive guys and who's going to be that guy to step up.
Thought it was interesting. You bring up the point there about who's behind BB and who's behind Kirby. They moved Rock Yassin to safety this past game because he's a veteran guy who's obviously played in this league, been a corner, but they wanted to see what he could do at safety. And I think part of that is, man, if you look at that depth chart at safety, there's not a lot of experience there. So here's a guy that's played in this league that might be able to give you something there. So I think that's an interesting thing to watch as well. Is could he emerge as your third safety at this point? Because if you're moving him prior to the second preseason game, that tells me you've got some questions too about what's back there. So I think Glover brings up a really good point there.
And Dan, they're going to get tested. They've got one of the toughest schedules in the league, and
they're facing some quarterbacks now in that schedule. I'll tell you that.
Man, that schedule is a monster.
Yeah, if you look at the schedule, the rollout is over the first 7-8 games. How many different quarterbacks they face along the way? Like really good elite quarterbacks. They're going to be tested, and it's going to happen right off the bat. And 7 or 9 road games are against teams that made the playoffs last year. So I think this division is going to be a rock fight. I think they're going to beat each other up, and then I think you're going to go outside the division and find it tough out there too. But I don't know, man. I believe every schedule is tough. Look at so many of these games are one-score games in the fourth quarter. And I just believe good teams find a way to win 10 games and bad teams find a way to lose 10 games. And I just, look, you can have injuries. You can have some things that don't go your way. You have some bad luck here and there. But, man, just more often than not, I just think the good teams find a way to separate themselves a little bit in the fourth quarter of games and then overall in a season.
Regardless how it shakes out, Dan Miller will be there to call it every single step of the way for the Lions here in 2025. And Dan, we certainly do appreciate your time joining us here on Bleav In Lions, presented by FanDuel. We look forward to hearing your calls all season long, and this week in preseason game number 3 at home against the Dolphins. Dan, thanks for joining Glover and I. Appreciate you,
Hey, guys,
man.
I appreciate it. Thank you for having me anytime.
Thank you.